Oh, Jam. Look, we're alive.
We do still
Are you
exist.
sure?
I mean, moderately. Sure. So,
I
hello, dear
Hey,
listeners. This is us here, dorks. And we're
uh,
not dead. I'm not dead. They're not dead. No one's dead. I mean, some people are dead, but not us.
We're all fine here, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, it's a boring
we're
conversation
only
anyway.
sort of dead, not all the way dead.
Yeah, sometimes I wish I was dead, but we'll get into that. We have not recorded a podcast of any sort since June the 6th. Today is July 25th.
Of 2024.
Well, yeah, same year. We've only missed almost 2 months,
Yeah.
Yeah.
not like 14 months. But I want it so we don't spend a large chunk of the actual episode explaining where we've been. I figured I'd upload a separate file of us just telling you where we've been, because it'll probably take longer than we'd want to spend on the Furry Ravnica episode. Because hey, spoilers, that's what we're doing on the, I guess it's 702? I guess it's 702. So yeah, on June 6th, we recorded the Dorks Just Chatting, the last one that went up. If that doesn't sound right to you, there's a reason for that. And for some reason, I don't remember what the reasoning was. I just didn't get around to posting it.
Huh.
I don't remember why. But so the next week would have been, because we record on Thursdays, next week would have been June 13th. And we would have been Dirkless. There was no Dirk, because Dirk was doing AP training. I actually got to have lunch with Dirk. That was nice. Dinner? Early dinner, not lunch.
Yeah, lunch. Yeah,
Linner.
Linner, yes.
Sure, yeah. Because he was actually almost here in Winston, and we met at Don Juan and had lunch, and it was awesome. Ow. But since he doesn't live just like 15 minutes or 20 minutes away from there anymore, he lives very far away from there now. It's not like he was going to leave his AP training and just run home and be home in time for the show the next day. So we had lunch at Mexican food, or dinner at Mexican food, and it was glorious. And then I couldn't get these other two to come up with anything. Brian was like, we could talk about Modern Horizons. And I went, I would rather die than talk about Modern Horizons. I don't remember if I said that, but that was my feeling.
Yeah.
And
You're a bit more polite about it, so I had to ask you, like, okay, are you just like not interested or actively uninterested?
And I think your response was just, eh.
Yeah, for some reason I was trying to be polite. I was actively uninterested, but I didn't want to miss the show if you guys, desperately wanted to talk about whatever the next cash grab was. I'm sorry, the next modern only set. Sorry. The next exercise in broken cards to break a format for no good reason.
It was fun to draft on Arena, but that's the most I ever got out of it.
Yeah, I just finished a really goofy draft deck against bots yesterday. It was fun, but it was very silly.
So Brian, I think, actually was all magnanimous and was like, well, why don't we take the week off and actually try to plan ahead for a change? And I was like, yeah, that thing that I say every week. And he was like, yeah. I was like, I hate you.
Yeah.
But
I never said it was a bad idea, and I never said it was my idea.
Because Brian wasn't going to be here the next week. So he was like, yeah, you guys can do whatever next week. We can start planning for the next episode ahead of time. We have yet to actually do that, by the way, dear listeners. But
it was a good idea.
It was a good idea that I frequently say, and no one ever listens. So that was to June 13th. Okay, we'll take the week off. It'll be fine. Next week we won't have Brian, but we'll do something, The next week, June 20th, Brian was in Jamaica,
Yeah, man.
and
I went to Montego Bay.
that's hot.
This was the week before the hurricane rolled through, so I got super lucky with that.
Ooh, good timing.
Mm.
Yeah.
And but the other three of us didn't do an episode because I had taken Renee to the emergency room a few nights before, or a few days before, and they had kept her for 2 nights in the hospital because she had severe pneumonia. Apparently, that was caused, as far as they could tell, by her. Apparently, her esophagus is shaped slightly funny. And they said, "Do you have acid reflux?" And she was like, "Yeah, horribly all my life." And they were like, "It's entirely possible that because of your esophagus is shaped slightly differently, that the reflex comes up and some small amount of it goes down the wrong pipe and then sits there in your lungs and forms pneumonia." And Renee was like, "What the hell?"
Huh.
We're just lucky that way.
Yeah.
Mm.
So they kept her for 2 nights, and then she stayed here with me for a week recuperating because she could not breathe. When I finally got her to agree to go to the ER, she couldn't walk without getting, I mean, to the bathroom without getting winded. She just had no lung capacity. And when it finally got bad enough to where, because she'd been sick at that point for 2 weeks, maybe 3, I can't remember now. But, it finally got bad enough to where she was like, "I'm actually concerned about this." I was like, "You think?" So, so they gave her breathing treatments and put her, on oxygen and whatnot while she was in the hospital. Gave her some stuff, some medication of some sort to take home, and she was very slowly recovering. But it was very slowly, and I was like, "All right, we'll just take another week off because I don't want to." If something goes wrong with Renee, I don't want to be like, "Well, we got to stop the show, bye." And they were like, "Yeah, good call."
Yeah.
So that was the June 20th episode. That didn't happen. June 20th recording, rather. The June 27th recording, I had taken Renee back to the hospital because while she was very slowly recovering, the night before, or maybe morning of her deciding to go back to work, she was worse. And she went to work, and I don't think she worked a full shift. And then I picked her up and brought her back home here with me, and she was not in good shape. And I was like, "We should go back to the emergency room." She was like, "Yeah, but let's do it tomorrow. I just want to sleep." And I was like, "Yeah, I mean, okay, as long as you're not going to die." She's like, "I'm not going to die." And then she had a god-awful coughing fit sitting on my couch. And she goes, "Ugh." I was like, "What?" She goes, "All of a sudden my entire esophagus hurts." I was like, "What does that mean?" She goes, I can feel it, and it hurts." I was like, "Do we need to go to the emergency room now?" She's like, "Nope, I just want to sleep. We'll go in the morning." I said, "Okay." So she woke up the next morning and was even worse. And so we went back to the emergency room.
Yeah.
And this time it was what's known as pneumomediastinum, which means there was air in her mediastinum, which is the between her lungs and her chest cavity.
Oh yeah, that's bad.
Yeah, where air ain't supposed to be. And her horrible pneumonia was still there because they kept her for 2 nights and then just sent her home. So this time they kept her for 4 nights with serious oxygen because they said what they thought was that if you pump enough oxygen in there, it will make the lungs absorb stuff faster, which will get them to reabsorb that air that was in the wrong chamber. And we were like, okay. So she was on heavy oxygen the whole time she was there, and getting like they didn't even give her steroids to take home. You know, the last time, no prednisone or anything. And like the nurses kept saying, "You're still wheezing," and she was like, "You think?" So this time they kept her until she was better. Hey, imagine that. And I don't remember if Thursday was the day we got to go home. No, I think we came home Friday. Or maybe Saturday. I'm pretty sure I was still in the hospital with Renee because I stayed with her the whole time because I don't want to leave her in the hospital by herself. And like it would have felt like I was leaving her alone in the hospital to come home and like chit chat with my friends. Even though like this is my job, it doesn't feel like a job. So I only left her to dash, essentially, and to like run out and get us food, or to run home and get her changes of clothes and whatnot. We spent our 1 year anniversary in the hospital, so that was nice. At least we were together, right?
Yep.
So yeah, hey, it's been a year. Isn't that crazy?
Congratulations. Sorry I had to celebrate it like that, but
Yeah, well, we were there so long that I had gone home and gotten the quest, and while she would sleep, I would strap the headset on and like put together 3D puzzles and whatnot. Nurse came in once while I was wearing it, and I was playing Puzzling Places, so I was putting together puzzles, and I had the pass through on so I could see Renee, and a nurse came in and I waved at her, and she just sort of stopped. It was like, and waved, and I waved back again. She's like, "Oh, you can see me?" I'm like, "Yeah, you're distorted and weird and dark, but I can see you."
distorted and weird and dark.
Yeah. But anyway, Renee is fine now. Uh, when they cut her loose from the hospital that time, she was actually like in good shape, and she spent the next week dealing with prednisone crap. Which, if you've ever been on prednisone for any reason, you know, like it messes you up in a variety of ways. Like it made Renee like pancakes.
She doesn't usually like pancakes.
No, she's like, I don't even like pancakes. She ordered pancakes at the hospital for breakfast once just because she's like, every few years I'll have pancakes to remind myself why I don't like pancakes. And so we both ordered blueberry pancakes for breakfast. And Renee got hooked. And then she bought a giant thing of pancake mix, and she's been having pancakes about every other day now. So yeah, prednisone messes you up. So that was the third week off, was because I was in the hospital with Renee. The next step recording would have been July 4th, and well, that's a holiday here in the States, and so
Yes,
everyone
it
was with
is.
family and stuff. Brian did pitch the idea, hey, we could record on Wednesday, and this time it was Mike who's like, I'm not gonna be in town, and we were like, never mind then.
I was
Yeah.
trying.
I was like, we've missed 3 weeks. What the hell's the fourth? Like, who cares? It'll be fine. And that's the week that I finally got the Dorks Just Chatting posted. Because I haven't been streaming or anything while Renee was in the hospital. Like, nothing. Because I was with her. Like, so I'm not going to leave you staying here in the hospital to go play video games. Like, no. The streaming can wait. It'll be fine. But I did finally, you know, since she was better, I got that Dorks Just Chatting episode posted. So everything we talked about was about a month out of date, but you know, that's okay. The next week, the fifth week, was July 11th, and Brian this time was the one out of town. He was at a funeral,
Yes, I was at my grandmother's funeral.
and the
She
rest.
passed in February, but but we did a celebration of life. So
Yeah, I love the way that he was like, "Yeah, I'm not going to be available this week because my that's when my grandmother's funeral's scheduled." And my brain was like, "Did someone take out a hit on grandma?"
well, I so many people I told, and they're like, "Oh, I'm so sorry," and I'm like, "Well, it was a little while ago. This was a pre-planned funeral, which sends the wrong message. Like, but we have family. Like my cousin Liz lives in London, so we wanted lots of people to be able to be there. So you know how it is,
Yeah.
and if you don't, you should.
And I was like, "Well, since it's our grand return back, I kind of want all four of us to be there." So, I mean, we've already missed a month, and we just posted an episode. It's fine. We'll take the week off. So that was July 11th. That brings us to last week, the 18th. On Tuesday that week, I woke up. Renee was here. I woke up. Why was Renee here? Oh, I was gonna take her to work because she was having an issue with her leg. Like she couldn't press down the clutch
Mm-hmm.
in her car with her left leg because her leg had some sort of horrible cramp thing. And so I was like, "Well, just stay here and I'll take you to work." She goes, "Yeah, okay." And I woke up early that morning. Well, for me, super early that morning for me. It was like 7:30, and couldn't go back to sleep. And got up and went out to the living room, and had like, I thought I'd pulled a muscle in my back. So the damn thing just hurt, and I kept trying to find a position to sit in to make it ease up, and I couldn't find one. And it kept getting worse and worse and worse until it finally hit me. I'm like, I think this is a kidney problem. Oh, crap. And I was supposed to take her to work at like noon. I think she went in at noon that day. And I woke her up at like 9. I was like, "Sweetheart, we have a serious problem." And she's like, "What?" "You do not wake Renee up early. This is not a thing you do if you value your existence." So the fact that I woke her up with super early with, "We have a major problem," she was like, "Oh my God." And I was like, "I'm having what I think is kidney pain." I was like, "I don't know what to do." She's like, "Should we go to an urgent care?" I was like, "Okay." So we go to an urgent care here in Kernersville. And I walked in, obviously in pain. And the lady sitting there asked me, in not so many words, but asked me if we had made a reservation. And I just looked at her while I wasn't to the point where I was writhing in pain yet, but I
Yeah.
was like, still moving around trying to find a comfortable thing. And I was like, "What?"
Table for two, please.
Yeah.
Your finest.
She's like, "Did you
Come
go
on.
online and like schedule a spot?" And I'm like, "I woke up with kidney pain and I came to urgent care. Is that not how this works?" I've never been to an urgent care. I thought it was like not quite an emergency room,
Uh-huh.
but apparently
I've
not.
been I've been to urgent care. A couple weeks ago, I was having pain in my ear, so I went to the urgent care near the Palladium, and they saw me and they prescribed an antibiotic for an ear infection. I was in and out in like 45 minutes.
Hmm.
Yeah. The
This
one
was
time
not
when
your
my
experience.
no, the one time when my gallbladder pain didn't start like in the absolute middle of the night, I started by going to an urgent care. It was like just enough after they had opened where they were like, yeah, it's gonna be like 4 hours." I'm like, "No." So we went to the hospital instead and didn't get a much better result.
Hmm. Yeah, they treated this like it was just a normal ass doctor's office.
Yeah.
Because she walked over further back. It had a very open floor plan. She walked over further back to a lady that was sitting there at a computer and like stood there politely waiting for her to finish before she said anything. This lady was just sitting there typing. And I'm just looking at Renee going, what is going on? Because at this point, the pain was like rapidly mounting. I'd had nausea that morning and had made a sound, but I hadn't actually thrown up. I just thought I'd throw that in there. So this other lady comes over. It turns out she's the doctor. And she goes, what's going on? And she asked me, the doctor questions when you tell them you have kidney pain. She goes, yeah, I think you might want to just go to the emergency department because they have the imaging for that sort of thing, and we don't really have that here. And I was like, okay, thank you. And just turned on my heel and went out the door because I don't need a polite, just say, go to the emergency room. Yes. Like, you can see me being
Understood.
in pain. But anyway, so we go back out to the car. I'm still driving at this point because while it hurts, like, I'm fine to drive, and Renee is kind of hesitant to drive, my car. And she knows that other people driving makes me insanely anxious, and she didn't want to make me insanely anxious while I was also in extreme pain because she's a sweetheart like that. So we get back in the car, pull out onto Main Street, and a wave of nausea hits me, and I pull over into the left turn lane, open the door, take a step out, and just puke in the middle of Main Street.
Now you're
like,
oh,
that's a new one. I'm going to write that down because for those of you that don't know or don't remember, I do not throw up. That sickness, whatever thing that I had a year or so ago was the first time. I don't even remember. It was more than a year ago. Because that was when I met Renee, so it was way before that. So it was between a year and a half and 2 years ago. I got really, really sick with, I don't know what it was. It was very similar to the plague that I had in college my freshman year that caused me to miss a Power Man 5000 concert. Right? But when I got that sickness, that was the first time that I had thrown up in well over a decade. Possibly longer. Like, I'd lied and said, I'm not coming into work today because I threw up. But I hated that job, and I would make literally an excuse to not go in. But I hadn't actually thrown up in like a decade. And yeah, this made me just pull over and blah. And I was like, oh. And the dude behind me stuck his head out the window. He's like, hey, man, you all right? I'm like, yeah, it's just... I think it's kidney pain. It's a kidney stone or something. I don't know. It's just nausea. I'm all right. I'm on the way to the hospital right now. He's like, all right, man. Just checking. Thank you.
At least you weren't on like a major road like Wendover or something. Just like a 3-lane highway.
Whew. I mean, Main Street's pretty busy, but not quite that bad. So yeah, we went to the ER. And they asked me all of the doctor questions that I had answered at the urgent care.
Are you pregnant? Yeah.
And then they left me there, writhing in pain, and it got worse and worse and worse. And I kept saying to Renee, how is this getting worse? And I kept having to like, they gave me one of the little puke bags with the plastic ring,
Yeah.
But there were a ton of people in the emergency room. I'm like, I don't want to puke in this bag in front of all these people because that'll just mess up their day. Plus, I don't want to puke in this bag at all. So I kept having to get up and walk way over there to the restroom. Luckily, I always got just enough warning. I also found out that when I was actually throwing up, the kidney pain didn't hurt.
Huh.
But, as soon as the vomiting stopped, the pain came back. I think it's because, like, the reason that I don't throw up is because I hate it. Because my entire body gets into it. And I think that all of the brain sensation nerves just are just loaded up with the I hate this of vomiting. and ignored the kidney pain. So while I hated throwing up, I really kind of liked it. And yeah, there was they took me away to go get a CAT scan, and we're like, okay, we need you to hold your breath and stop moving. And at this point, it was so bad, and laying down on the CAT scan thing made it hurt worse. And so I was just
Mm-hmm.
like horribly writhing in pain, trying desperately to get it to ease up just a fraction so I could hold my breath and let them take the picture. And somehow I did. I'm still not entirely sure how. And then they would leave me sitting in the chair again, writhing in pain. There was an announcement. It got so bad at one point. There was an announcement over the intercom. It sounded like a really crappy McDonald's drive-thru. Like, as clear as I sounded there was way clearer than what. And they announced an active shooter in the hospital.
Huh.
And my first thought was, maybe they'll kill me. And then at the very end of the announcement, they're like, this is a drill. This is a drill. And I was like, I can't say what I said, but
Yeah.
it was a single syllable, and it rhymes with truck. Like, it was so bad that I was like, maybe they'll shoot me and put me out of my misery. If they say get on the floor, I'm going to stand up and scream at them. But no, it was a drill. Like, that's how bad it hurt. Like, this is not a joke. I am not making this for comedy, because this is not funny. That was my mindset at that point. And at some point, I was making a conscious effort to like get a hold of myself.
Yeah.
And I blacked out. I think in self-defense. But I didn't like fully black out, because when someone came out and said my name, I immediately heard them and said, "Oh, thank God," and stood up and then sat back down, because I had just sort of kind of halfway blacked out and then tried to stand up immediately. And so they brought over a little wheelchair, and I got into the wheelchair, and they were like, "How's your pain?" And I went, it's gone." She was like, "What?" I'm like, at this point, Renee was already late to work, but she didn't want to leave me. I kept trying. The old man said that he would come get her and take her to work, and like drop mom off with me to drive me home. And Renee was like, "No, we'll do that. We'll do that later. I want to make sure you're taken care of first." I was like, "Oh." But I had been in pain from like 7:30 ish to about, this had to be like 12 or 12:30.
Yeah.
And of course, when they call my name is when it subsides. I was like, "Oh, nice."
Well, yeah.
I'm covered in a cold sweat, because it wasn't hot in the emergency room, but I was sweating my ass off because it hurt that bad. Which is still a thing that I've never sweated that much just from pain. Like, that terrifies me now, looking back, thinking about it. But yeah, they were like, "We don't have a room for you, but we've got a bed in the hallway." I was like, "Works for me." She rolled me back to the bed in the hallway, and the breeze on me, because she was booking it. The breeze on me from the wheelchair felt so good.
Well, at least something had to eventually.
And somebody came to me and told me I had a 3 mm kidney stone. They didn't give me any sort of frame of reference, but apparently the vast majority of kidney stones are like 5 mm and less. So, pretty average size kidney stone, I guess. And they gave me an IV to inject some pain medicine that I no longer needed, and some anti-nausea that I no longer needed, and and one of the things she gave me was morphine. And I'm like, "Do you have to give me the morphine?" She goes, "What?" I was like, "Morphine makes me an asshole."
Sure, she's not used to people saying, "I don't want the morphine."
Yeah, I mean, at that point, I didn't have any pain anymore, so I was cool. And she goes, "What?" I was like, "Just to, I had morphine to recover from surgery a long time ago,
For
and it turned me into an
I,
asshole."
s- I swear it sounded like you were gonna say I had morphine for breakfast. So
And Renee just patted me on the leg and was like, you can be an asshole to me, sweetheart. It's fine." I'm like, "No." And then she goes, "Actually, no. Your mom's gonna come, so you can be an asshole to her." I'm like, "She's who I was an asshole to in the first place when I had the morphine." And the nurse just looked at me. She's like, "It's not much. You'll be fine." I was like, "Okay." So like, I was happy that they gave me drugs, but I was upset because they gave me the drugs after the pain was gone, so I had no idea if they worked or not. And they gave me 4 prescriptions and we're like, "All right, you can go." And at this point, the old man had shown up and made the switch, so Mom was like, "Okay, well." And then Mom drove me home, and I love Mom to death, but Jesus Christ, Mom drives like an old person. Mom is an old person, but she drives like an old person. We went to Walgreens to get my drugs, and they were closed for lunch. So then she had missed a lunch date with a friend of hers to come get me, and I was like, what were you guys gonna have?" She's like, "We were gonna have Don Juan." I was like, "Hey, let's go have Don Juan," because I felt fine, and I had done nothing but vomit for several hours, so like I was hungry. So we went to Don Juan, and then we went and got my drugs, and everything was fine. And ever since then it has been, I've been in 3 states. I've either been in horrible pain, writhing on
Uh-huh.
the couch, or asleep, or right now, fine. I've had 2 full days with no pain, not in a row. At the second day, I had no pain all day. Woke up that morning, felt good. Felt good all day. Went to the grocery store. Went to see the women that work in the office here and gossiped with them for an hour or so. Went to did a dash shift. Everything was fine. And then I skipped streaming that night. I've done 1 stream since all this started 9 days ago.
Mm-hmm.
I skipped streaming because I was like, my apartment is a wreck. I went back to the grocery store. I had to buy some Drano because the freaking kitchen sink was clogged. I did a bunch of dishes. Like, I cleaned up around the place. I was like, yeah. And around about, I want to say 9, I think, the pain hit me again. And, I took the non-narcotic, or whatever the proper word is. They gave me 2 pain drugs, one for pain, and then they gave me oxycodone for, like, pain.
yeah,
And I took the non-oxy one, and it didn't touch it. And after a couple hours of waiting on it to go away, I said, "Screw this." I took an oxy, and it didn't touch it. And the pain finally went away at about 11 the next day. So I had a 14-hour pain binge, which was the longest
Mm.
one yet. Don't ever get a kidney stone, y'all.
Yeah, noted.
I posted about it on Facebook, and I had multiple women with multiple children each say, "I would rather give birth without an epidural than have another kidney stone." And I went, "Oh, because they've experienced both, and they decided the kidney stones were."
hmm.
I was like, "Oh, that's nice." So yeah, last week we were gonna do a show as long as I was pain free, and about half an hour before go time, the pain hit me hard, and I was like, "Can't do it this week. I'm sorry, y'all." So that one only lasted about 3 hours. most of them have only lasted a few hours, and then I got that 14-hour horrible thing a couple days ago. Today, been no pain all day. The old man and I took Renee to work. The old man and I handled her flat tire that she woke up with a flat tire yesterday. Of course, the day that I didn't sleep all night because of the pain and had been asleep for about an hour when she called to be like, I have a flat tire. I was like, I just went to sleep. I'm so sorry. I can't help you. So that sucks. But we handled that today. And I did a dash shift, and everything's good. And we here with the dorks, and now we're going to stop this and record an actual show. But I wanted to do this first, because this took way longer than I meant. This is 35 minutes now of explaining where we've been for anyone that cares. So that, it was just a horrible series of events, mostly involving me and Renee and medical issues.
Unfortunately, life does happen.
Yeah, and it's been happening far too frequently.
It happens in buckets.
Mm-hmm.
If this is life happening, life can eat my ass, because I don't want this anymore. Thank you. So, yeah, if you made it this far and listened to this whole thing, hey, thank you. Stick around. And in another day or so, the Bloomborough episode will go live. How cool is that? It's all right. So thank you all so very much for listening, and don't get a kidney stone or pneumonia. Just rule 1, no dying.